So in this assignment update, I'm just going to talk a little bit about your citation quiz and the marginal notes assignment you had. People did a nice job with the marginal note assignment. Just a heads up, in assignments like this, one thing I'm looking for is that you give me some kind of explicit details about what you did. So don't just tell me generally how your reading practice and note-taking practice changed from one to the other, but tell me some specifics so that I can have some information that lets me know that you really did the assignment. Most people did that, but just a heads up. I think that taking marginal notes is one of the most important things you can do in your reading practices, especially when you're reading scholarly sources. That can be kind of difficult. And as said, noted in the video, you don't want to have to read that whole source, forget exactly what it was talking about, only to go back when it's time to complete your paper and have to reread it. So the more careful you are in your reading practice, the better notes that you take, the more work you save yourself in the end. This will matter in this class to some extent, but in a class that takes place over an entire semester or a much larger research paper where you have 15 to 20 sources instead of 5, this is going to matter even more. Because there'll be a longer period of time between your reading the sources and when you need to use them to write the paper, and there'll be more sources for you to use. So the better notes that you take during the reading process, the more time you're going to save yourself in the end. It helps direct your reading toward a particular purpose when you take marginal notes. I really liked how there were a few students who mentioned particular things in the assignment, like taking those notes gives you a chance to stop and think about what you're reading and reflect on it and to relate it to your topic. That's super useful work that you're doing when you do that. And it gives you a kind of purpose. It helps direct your reading. Of course, it helps with your memory. And one of the things that will matter more when you get closer to the writing stage is that it really helps you to be able to start making comparisons between the different kinds of articles that you are reading. So at the end of this class, you'll have 5 sources that are all on the same topic. And your job will then be, how do I put these sources into conversation together? How do I relate them to one another? And one of the things that you have to do there, the word we might use is synthesis. And one of the things that you really have to do there is think about, well, where are the comparisons? Where are they the same? Where are they different? Are these the differences that really matter for my topic? So the kinds of notes that you take, marginal notes that you take, can help you with this work. And then lastly, just doing summarizing work. I always think it's useful at the end of a article that I read or a source that I think I really want to use for a research paper, to just try to put it in my own words. If I can summarize this in my own words, it means I really understood the article. And if I can't, it means maybe I'm still kind of confused about some of the information and I should go back and check it out. So summary is also a tool that you can use to really test your own knowledge and your own comprehension about what you've read. These practices of annotation and highlighting should be used on all of your readings from here on out through the course. So you have several upcoming assignments that are asking you to read scholarly primary sources that you'll use for your paper. This isn't a face-to-face class, so I can't go around and check to see if you are doing this, but I would highly recommend it. It will save you work in the end, and you will do a better job on that final paper. The other thing I want to talk about in this little video is the citation quiz. Citations are everyone's worst enemy. Nobody really likes it. I don't even like to do them. But they are essential. They are important. Other professors will check that you've done them correctly. And they are the way that you give credit to others for their ideas. So in that way, they really do matter as well. There's some questions about plagiarism that can come up. It's a kind of scary word. You will never get failed. You will never have a failing grade because you've cited too often. But failing to cite ideas that are not your own could mean the dreaded P word, plagiarism, is used in relationship to your work. So when in doubt, cite. You can always receive the feedback that you didn't need a citation, but it will protect you against any kind of question of plagiarism. So you were given a number of sources. It's important to note, this first one was a scholarly journal article. It's important to note that even when you're finding things on the web, all the information for the citations that you need for the citations will be found on this sort of first page. So the author names, the title of the article, the title of the journal, the volume, the issue, the inclusive page numbers, the DOI number. This is also true of a book. The second one asked you to look at a book. So if you scroll down in this book, you'll see on the first couple of pages when you open the text, you have all the information you need. You have the authors or editors in this case. You have the title of the book, full title. You have the, sorry, I always have to look for this. Oh, you have the publishers, and you have the place in which it was published, and you have the year of publication, 2009. So those are the kinds of things that you have to look for. Same thing with popular press or news magazine sources. You should be able to find the information you need, the author, the title, the source, the journal title in this case, the date of publication, and in this case, the URL you might need as well. And then lastly, you were given a radio program, which is slightly different. You may or may not find yourself needing to use these, but same thing, right? You want to make sure you have author, you have the show that it was published, you have the title, you have the date. So this is a reference page. There were some problems in the references overall. There were some people who had it spot on. I just want to draw your attention to a few of the more common mistakes. You can see here, with a reference page, you always need to put the sources in alphabetical order. You also need to have a hanging indent. So you should single space these. Sometimes professors want you to double space, so I'm not going to mark off for single or double space, but I prefer them single spaced. The only way I know, I think there's some students who know tricks about how to get that hanging indent. The only way I know how to do it is at the end of the line, you hit enter and then you space over. And if your word works like mine, you have to go back up and remove the space between paragraphs in order to make it so there's not huge spaces between those. So you see here, this is the popular press source in Business Insider. A couple of things to note, that the author first names are only initials. You only need the year if it's a scholarly source, like a book or a scholarly journal. But if it's a popular source that is published on a weekly basis, then you'll want the entire date. In the title, you only use capital letters on the first word, any proper nouns, or the first word after a comma or a semicolon. So that's one mistake students often make. If the source is coming from a particular website, you want to have the date that you retrieved it on and then the URL. So the most common citation you're going to probably use is this one here. It's a scholarly source. Again, same thing. First initials, year, article title. Then the journal title is in italics. The volume, the issue, make sure you have the inclusive page numbers. And if there's a DOI, which usually there are now, you should be using the DOI number, not retrieved from in APA formatting. So you can take a look at these, make sure you're doing it in the same way. And this bottom one just gives you an example of how in-text citations will look. So APA uses in-text citation format of author last name, comma, year. So Bertrand, 2017. If you are writing and you're mentioning the author name in your text, then you only need to include the year. So for example, if you were to say, Smith mentions that, ... then after Smith you put the year, and then that's your citation. If you end up after the ... putting in, say, a direct quote, then you have to put the page number or the paragraph from which you found it. So in this situation, it would be Smith, 2007, mentions that quote, and then at the end in another parentheses, you'd put page and the page number and the period at the end. If you just have a quote and you don't make reference to the author before then, you have it in quotation marks, and at the end you do author last name, comma, year, comma, page number.